Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and his Liberal government were just put in a very uncomfortable position today after Yves Francois Blanchet, the leader of the Bloc Québécois, came out and declared that his party is working with other parties to try and bring down Trudeau's Liberal government. This means that the only party that's actually keeping the Liberals in power now is Jagmeet Singh's NDP. And Jagmeet Singh's current political play is all about how he's ripped up the supply and confidence agreement with the Liberals and he's his own man again. He will do whatever he and the NDP want. And now that Yves Francois Blanchet saying, well, we'll defeat the Liberal government today, we're working with other parties, we are going to see things not just get bad for Trudeau, but get really bad for Jagmeet Singh. Because Jagmeet Singh and the NDP are secretly completely broke. Who could have guessed that socialists aren't good with money? And so at the same time, they want to criticize Trudeau constantly and say he's unfit to be the prime minister. They also can't fight an election. But let's get into some of the clips from this press conference. Thank you to True North for clipping these press conferences. I don't exactly have a team of people behind me. And before I actually get into this, again, I've said this in other videos. 75% of you watching me right now are probably not actually subscribed. I've looked at my back end analytics. So if you like the channel, make sure you subscribe. And if you want to support the show, you can also donate to the Give, Send, Go legal fund we have in the description below, as well as pinned at the top of the comments. But here is Yves Francois Blanchet saying that he is working with other parties to try and make sure the government falls.
Are you open to another conversation? If the government comes to you today, tomorrow, even the day after, are you open to a conversation to keep that going if you get what you want?
Have they come to us yesterday or the day before? No, we haven't got what we wanted. If before, of course, if before they fall, they give us all we have asked under the terms that we have described, we don't have a choice but to take it. But we are not negotiating anything as we speak. We are negotiating with opposition parties in order to have the government be.
So that will mean your support as well. If they give you,
this is all about the old age pension payment increases that the Bloc Québécois are looking for. A very big populist issue for them in Quebec. And oddly enough, I think it's really the reason why the Liberals are not just throwing more money at this, because we've experienced what it's like to have Justin Trudeau and Chrystia Freeland in charge of Canada's finances. The fact that they haven't caved to the Bloc and just given them the 10% increase on old age pensions for, I believe, people between the ages of 67 and like 75 or 80 or whatever, that it's probably because we actually are in such a bad economic position that the Liberals know we would go bankrupt if we actually approved this. This is where politics can be a little cynical, because I believe the Conservatives have actually been supporting the Bloc, but just because they know that the Bloc is asking for too much and the Liberals can't give it to them. And so the Liberals are stuck between a rock and a hard place of their own creation, because they have absolutely ruined the economy, and adding any more money onto these big programs means that the inflation rate is going to kick back up and the Liberals lose the last tiny argument they have to keep them in government, which is that inflation has gone down over the past couple of years, which is nonsense. It's at like 2.3%. It's still going up, and that's an increase on top of the massive increases that we had back in 2020, 2021, and 2022. Anyways, I'll let Francois Blanchet finish up here.
If they give you what you ask for, even if it's after this date, does that mean they regain your support?
Let's say that if they give us exactly all we have asked for before they fall, because if there's a vote tomorrow, they might fall tomorrow, we will look into it and we will be coherent with all what we have said so far. We want precisely what is in Bill 3, C319 and in Bill C282. Bring that to us and we'll discuss. But in the meantime, they are seriously in danger to fall.
I think the other thing they were looking for as well was something to do with healthcare or whatever. Really, whenever it's the Bloc, they're just the even more French liberals who are more against immigration. They really are looking for just like big increases in social spending that the liberals are already in favor of. They just know that they make themselves look good in Quebec by being the main drivers of these pension increases. And this is another good clip where the Bloc leader is then asked if he is ready for an election, which is really the big issue here. Can you actually back up your threats with an election?
Jagmeet Singh has said he's ready for an election. Jagmeet Singh has said he's ready for an election, but he doesn't want one. Are you ready for an election, and do you want to have one right now?
Both. I'm ready for an election. That was one of the reasons why we said 5 weeks ago that we were giving ourselves and the government 5 weeks. 5 weeks to go through the bills, which they didn't do. 5 weeks so that there would still be time to go into election before having an election, which would be between Christmas and New Year's Eve. And 5 weeks in order to be absolutely ready to go into election tomorrow morning. Not only are we ready, but we might be expecting that with enthusiasm. I do not believe that Quebecers want elections so much, but I do believe that they will understand that this is where we are now.
You know what? I don't like the Bloc Québécois or use Francois Blanchet in the sense that they are, at the end of the day, lefty people. They are big, bloated government advocates. At the same time, that's how you negotiate. Goodness, Jagmeet Singh. Like, I'm a conservative, obviously, so I don't want any of these people to do well. But, like, Jagmeet Singh sucks at politics like he's trying to win a prize. The man doesn't know actually how to take a position and bluff your way into getting what you want, which is probably good for all of us because the NDP is just the more socialistic version of the Liberals. It is the even more woke and progressive version of the Liberals. But Jagmeet Singh, every time he asks for something, he always is then asked the next moment, will you have an election over this? Will you actually hit the nuclear button that you have that can hurt the Liberals? Well, no. Well, Canadians don't want an election. So you're pathetic. You're not getting anything because everything that you do, everything you ask for, is backed up by nothing. And the thing is, again, the NDP's broke right now because socialists can't actually manage money properly. I've seen Alex Zoltan on Twitter had released documents about this. Not that it was like secret documents, but it's stuff that you have to dig for. The NDP are not only heavily in debt because every election they usually just took a loan out on the Leighton building, but they also only have about $200,000 on hand right now. And there's no way a bank is going to write these guys a check because they're so poorly managed. There's no like prospect of them being able to fundraise enough to pay back any of this stuff. I actually sign up to the federal NDP email list just to see what they're saying. Every single email is a sweaty and desperate a donation ask, fundraising email. It's always like, guys, we just need $17. If you give us $17, we'll be able to do something. I don't know. Just give us $17 and we'll give you a bad looking shirt. Like, it's so pathetic that they're like going through their email list to say, just give us $10 because nobody wants to give them anything because they don't do anything. Because if you're an NDP supporter, as much as you don't like the Liberals, what is the NDP doing different than the Liberals? This is why so many people have just moved over to the Conservatives, because most voters are not very ideological. And when they used to vote NDP or Liberal, but they see both of those parties aren't working, well, unless they're in Quebec, they're going to go and vote for the Conservatives or maybe the Greens if they're feeling really spicy in a day. But they're just mostly voting Conservative because the Conservatives have a coherent plan that is different from what the Liberals are doing. There was actually good moments recently of Pierre Poilievre asking for real spending cuts in government. I think Conservatives should actually be championing spending cuts. The Liberals are trying to smear them over wanting to cut spending. But guess what? Most people want us to cut spending because everyone understands at the end of the day, we can't keep spending way more than we bring in, especially as our deficits are outpacing our growth right now. Our current growth is all in raw GDP, not in actual GDP per capita. So in 10 years, we might have no serious earners who can actually help prop up the federal budget because we've chased them all into the US or they retired, and most of our workers are making below $50,000. Oh, anyways, I want to move on to another clip here of Chrystia Freeland responding to the ongoing issues with the Bloc Québécois. I want to first talk about what her reaction is in response to Yves Francois Blanchet, and then I want to go over to the secret ballot initiative to gauge Justin Trudeau's approval in his own caucus, because that's still an ongoing issue for the Prime Minister.
On the Bloc issue, can you just categorically say that the Liberal government will not bring in the 10% increase? And Mr. Duclos, on the same point, we heard that you said it was a fake ultimatum. In essence, I'm paraphrasing what you were saying this morning in French. Has your view changed after hearing Mr. Blanchet earlier today say that he is looking to bring the government down at the earliest available opportunity?
I'll just say very quickly, I have a good relationship with the Bloc. I think our government does. The lines of communication are open. There are a lot of things that we agree on, and we think that it's important to.
This is how you belittle your opponent in a negotiation. This is like worse than like Kamala Harris talking about an issue. It's just like she's literally said nothing, and it's been about taking off 9 seconds for the question. Has not been answering this thing at all. It's just like describing how things work a little bit. There's an open communication. I have a good relationship. I think that we can talk and what. Okay, but what are you actually doing? Goodness, what are you doing about it?
Continue to have an open door and continue to have an opportunity to talk. And I do want to emphasize.
Oh my goodness, we need to emphasize more how much the doors are open and we're ready to talk and there's an open door to the conversation that could be had.
Our government is proud of our record when it comes to supporting seniors in Canada. I would say that no federal government has done more than we have done to support Canadian seniors, and the statistics bear that out. We have really transformed the life of seniors and lifted millions of Canadian seniors out of poverty. That's something that we're really proud of.
My goodness. After watching that, I need to tell a mini story. I think my mom mentioned today, if Kamala Harris doesn't win the US presidency in like a week's time here, you wonder if she might move to Canada and try and run for the Liberal leadership. And I said, I think the Liberal Party might be self-loathing enough to do something like that because they have Chrystia Freeland as the deputy prime minister. What was that? Like, that's just a wet nothing. Let one of the other people next to you say something. At least they can say, oh, I don't think the Bloc's serious. We've already been doing a lot. And if they want to give us a more moderate proposal, maybe we'll consider it. That's a good negotiating position. This is what I think. As I'm watching these people, I'm thinking of other things you could say. Just say we could have talked about a 3 or 4% increase, but they didn't want to hear it because they're not willing to understand that the government has needs to make our spending more efficient or whatever. And the Bloc is just doing a bunch of brinksmanship and we're not engaging in it. If you said that, it would be a stronger position. It's still not accurate because I think all the spending is way too much. And really, yes, the Liberals technically are supporting seniors more than anyone else. But the point is that they have to support seniors more because they've been ruining the economy. In theory, the Soviet Union was the biggest supporter of its citizens compared to other governments, or like Mao's China, because they're the ones controlling how much people get. On 100% of people's incomes are coming from the government. That doesn't, just because you're giving people stuff doesn't mean you're actually supporting them. It means you're backfilling them after you hurt them. Oh, okay, but let's get to the question regarding the secret ballot inside of the Liberal Party, because although Justin Trudeau is saying, I'm staying on as Prime Minister, I'm not leaving, and some of these Liberal MPs are getting cold feet about calling for him to resign, it's still an issue, and they are still not able to give strong answers on what's going on.
While we've been speaking here, there's been a number of your caucus colleagues who've told reporters that they support the idea of a secret ballot vote on Mr. Trudeau's leadership. I should say before caucus this morning, many of your cabinet colleagues have said that's not the right idea. Considering what you've said, saying that the vast majority of caucus members support Mr. Trudeau, why not have a vote on the issue?
Well, thank you very much, Mackenzie, and thank you for the question. I think, as is well known, we had a caucus meeting last week where there was a candid and extensive exchange of views. It was a really good meeting. The Liberal.
She might as well start talking about if they had served muffins or whatnot or whatever. She just talks about ancillary nothingness every time she answers a question. Well, we had a very candid, open conversation with a lot of views. It's like I'd love. We should invent a game where you have to answer questions like Freeland. It's called Freeland. You point at someone and you ask them a question. And you just say Freeland, and the person just you're like, hey, how do you like dinner? Well, there's a lot of ingredients on this plate, and I think that there is a diversity of flavors going on here. You worked hard cooking this meal. You were, up early thinking about it. What were you going to put in the potato salad? It's like, oh my goodness, what is this?
Liberal Party is a broad church. We have always had a diversity of views, and we believe that's one of the things that makes us strong. I believed before that meeting, and my view was confirmed, that the vast majority of MPs support the Prime Minister. They support him as our leader today, and they support him as the guy who's going to lead us into the next election. Our party and our caucus have had many opportunities to decide our own rules for choosing a leader. Our party decided on that, and our caucus decided on that. And in our rules, the leader is not chosen by secret ballot of caucus members. That's just not how Liberals govern themselves.
There's in fact actually no way of getting rid of a Liberal leader inside the Liberal Party if caucus or the membership of the party loses faith in them. There's legitimately, the board can't do it, the board of the party can't do it, caucus can't do it, the members can't do it. Basically, the leader just decides to step down one day, maybe. It's legally dubious whether they could even basically sue to make him leave. It's kind of ridiculous. Like, the only way they could get rid of him is if they call for an election and just force him into an election they know he's going to lose, and then just pick someone else later. But even then, he could technically just stay on afterwards. That's how broken and dictatorial the Liberal Party is. But goodness, somebody needs to get down to Ottawa right now and start oiling the joints of Chrystia Freeland. She is stiffer than usual. It's so bad. Yeah, so I don't think that the Liberal government is going to be defeated. I think there is a chance that maybe Jagmeet Singh knows that if he keeps voting to keep them in power while the Bloc and the Conservatives and maybe the Greens are voting against them, that they are basically going to suffer the same defeat as the Liberals, and it's best to go into a new election with not a lot of money on hand, and you have to scrape together some cash to maybe put together some competent campaigns, just make it very volunteer heavy, that would be a better option than maybe sticking around until the end of 2025 with another $1 million. Because at the end of the day, really, the NDP doesn't have that many ridings it can compete in anyways. It should just be telling the locals to raise money. I'm giving a party I don't like advice. Maybe they should take it, but the fact that they are in the place that they are in now means they probably won't, because they don't like good decision making. But anyways, so obviously I think the Conservatives are going to win whatever election does end up coming through. So there is a part of me that also thinks that the Bloc knows that it's not going to get defeated, so they can vote against the Liberal Party at least once, and it gives them a bit of a popularity boost, but that they don't really want it defeated, just as maybe Jagmeet Singh's NDP one day may vote to dissolve the government at a time when they know the Bloc will vote to keep them. And so each party gets to pretend like we're really strongly against the Liberals, even though they're basically taking turns of who's going to end up keeping the government from collapsing. But there is one more thing in this video I want to mention, and it is that Kevin Vuong foreign interference press conference. You guys should check it out. I will link it in the description of this video below. It's on CPAC's YouTube channel. He did a really good job in his press conference with Sam Cooper and other investigative journalists, talking about the four names that they mentioned that are in Canadian politics who are connected with foreign interference or foreign governments. This was mainly about the Chinese Communist Party and its front groups in Canada. The crazy thing in the aftermath of this interview, this press conference, which I'm not going to show here, it's very long, it might need its own video. Me and Daniel Boardman talked about it yesterday in a live stream for the channel. But since it came out, there has been actually a lot of news, even though not a single news entity has covered it. Mary New, who is one of the people mentioned by Sam Cooper and Kevin Vuong, who is an independent MP, by the way. Kevin Vuong is the independent MP for Spadina, Fort York. That Mary New, when they mentioned her, who is our export and trade minister, which is a little dangerous if you have some exposure with the CCP, responded to it in a longer thread where she says, "It's unfortunate that Mr. Vuong recently gave Sam Cooper another platform to make insinuations about me, which I categorically reject." And she goes on in post to basically insult Sam Cooper, saying, "Oh, he was fired from the Globe, from Global News. He has no credibility, blah, blah, blah." he actually has a lot of credibility. He was fired from Global News because Han Dong, a man who also obviously is involved with the CCP, had ended up trying to like sue the Global News and Sam Cooper, and because it was effectively just lawfare and it was just going to try and hurt the Global News and Sam Cooper financially, Global News made the cowardly decision just to cut Sam Cooper loose, and now Sam Cooper does his own thing. But because he has integrity, he is still investigating. I believe Sam Cooper's more of a liberal guy, anyways, not in terms of voting for that party. I don't think he'd vote for a party this corrupt with CCP, interference and influence, since he's very much anti-CCP. But it's not like he's an arch conservative, if anything. But Kevin Vuong, too, is a man who actually was elected as a liberal. But because he was an anti-communist, people like Han Dong seemed to notice that he was an anti-communist, and then he tried to basically have him whacked in terms of getting him thrown off the ballot as the liberal before the 21 election. There's a pattern, and I can maybe link an article I wrote on this situation, like back in early 2023, showing that Han Dong and the CCP probably were the ones who wanted Kevin Vuong out as the liberal in his riding. They didn't move against him fast enough to remove him from the ballot, so Kevin Vuong still got into government, but has always been sitting as an independent. And since he's been doing that, he's like the most anti-communist, anti-foreign interference, anti-IRGC MP that there's ever been in Parliament. He's been doing a really good job. And this is really showing it. The fact that Mary New even responded to this and is doing this whole, it was all a bunch of lies and deceit. And then you think to yourself, well, which part, Mary? And she's like, a lot of it, and then she won't actually describe to you what things were said about her were wrong. And what they said about her was basically there was a bunch of CCP operatives in her office, people who work or have connections with the Chinese consulate, who then just pass information on what goes on inside of Trudeau's cabinet, basically through Mary New's office. It's completely ridiculous. And she posted this despite no media coverage, because there's obviously a lot of smoke or fire here. But as Kirk Lubimov pointed out on Twitter, who's another great person I think you guys should go follow, Kirk Lubimov there, he points out, CBC wrote an article on Justin Trudeau's beard, but nothing on the foreign interference or the fact that his office is working with an extremist. Defund the CBC couldn't come soon enough. And the actual CBC headline is Heir Apparent, How Justin Trudeau's Beard Makes Him Look Like Dad. My goodness. Not one outlet has covered the foreign interference like a press conference other than independent media. Not one actual media company has really talked about it. CTV News technically streamed it, but they stream a lot of press conferences, and then there was zero commentary on it. I hope they talk about it because there was actually a lot here. In fact, one of the people who was actually a former conservative senator, only stepped down in June because he reached the age where you have to, Victor O, is actually associated with the Chinese billionaire who has been suing me. That's why I have the Give, Send, Go fundraiser. So, you can take that for what you think when there's a foreign interference press conference being held and somebody associated with the guy who's suing me is mentioned. Take that to mean what you will. But I guess that's it for me today. But that's something I want to cover more in depth as time goes on. But it's wild how we can't get a single legacy media outlet to cover this stuff. And like me and Daniel Borden were talking about yesterday, yes, there's some hosts in the legacy media who are better than others. Vashi Kapelos is definitely better than most. But even she generally doesn't cover issues unless they are forced to become issues. Unless this really breaks out into the open, which I think it kind of has, the fact that Mary New feels like she has to get out ahead of it, that they don't cover this stuff because it's bad for the Liberals and, they can hand wave it away. Oh, it's just an independent MP. It's just Kevin Vuong. Who cares? Well, he's doing way better work than any other MP on this specific file, so maybe people should look into it. Sam Cooper is a very good investigative journalist, and somehow everyone's acting like he's just a joke. That's the big facade of legacy media. If you have the legacy media badge on, you're a good journalist. And if you're Sam Cooper, who used to work for them, you're a great journalist up until you get fired. Now you're just a hack. Now we don't even have to talk about you or give you any regard whatsoever, even though his reporting has been rock solid pretty much up to this point. Okay. That should be it for me today, guys. Again, like this video, share the channel, mention it to other people, subscribe, and if you want to donate to the Give, Send, Go legal campaign I have in the description below, as well as pinned at the top of the comments. And if you want to sign up actually on my website, it's just basically contact information so that if I know of any good nomination races in your area for a conservative party, whether it's a provincial party or the federal party, I can point out good candidates in the nomination to support. Because as much as I generally like the Conservative Party, there are a lot of people who are not particularly conservative who will try and run in the nominations just because it's the only party that you can actually win with. And so if you want to basically get any in-depth information on that, or you want to even recommend good candidates in specific ridings to me, I can then recommend it to other people in that code area, or make even miniature videos where I can then basically talk about each of the candidates who I like, who I think, fits different types of categories in terms of conservatism, the fiscal conservative, the social conservative, who I'd consider like the full spectrum orthodox conservative, stuff like that, or who are the red Tories. Anyways, that's it for me today, guys. Have a good one.